Hey, y'all, I got a question for you. Have you experienced a place where you're like, this is so painful, this journey? I don't know if I can do this. This just seems too hard. And feeling all the emotions and the intensity of this experience, is it going to get better? What can I expect? Let's have a conversation about this. I'm curious to see what you would think about this. Welcome to Beyond the Facade podcast. I'm your host, Luke Gordon, and I'm thrilled to have you join me in this space today. What we're going to be doing is diving deep into the trials and triumphs and truths of seeking authenticity. Becoming your true self isn't about a single action or moment. It's a relentless pursuit, a commitment to self that reveals the rich connection and meaning that our life has to offer. So whether this is your first time tuning in or you're a regular listener, know this: what you're building here goes beyond a conversation. You're here to challenge, to change, and to celebrate the incredible journey of becoming your authentic self. Because when you dare to show up fully, the rewards are immeasurable. So welcome to Beyond the Facade. Let's get started. All right, everybody, welcome back. I am just excited to have you here. This is one of my favorite topics. I'm probably just saying that every single time we talk. There's been I don't know, probably one of the game changers in my journey and the journey that I'm involved with other people. And there's this book that I am absolutely in love with. It's called Dopamine Nation. And when it comes to addiction or compulsive behavior, we're often talking about dopamine. It's probably not a new word to you, but I'm hoping if you haven't read the book, I'm hoping this brings something new to the table that maybe you've never considered before. And if you have already heard this, maybe even heard me talk about it, maybe something will hit a little different. So anyway, the author of the book is so cool. Her name's Dr. Anna Lemke, and she discusses this relationship between pleasure and pain. And she highlights how our world is basically, there's an overabundance of everything. You go back generations, back to our grandparents, generations past, they didn't have a lot. They had to survive, and they had to work all day to survive. And now in today's world, and I know this can be argued and this can be debated, but the gap between those who have a lot and those who have a little is tighter than it's ever been in the history of the world. Okay. So even those who have less still have more, which creates this space for really extra time. So lots of extra leisure time. Dr. Lemke provides examples of our world today, like whether it's drugs, food, news, gambling, shopping, gaming, texting, sex, Facebook, Instagram, all the social media aspects. Stimuli is available in abundance, all right? And she gives this analogy that I just really, really love, where it's like, okay, reward, okay? Reward, our ability to be able to feel reward is kind of like, picture baseball, all right? Picture a pitcher. There's a pitcher and there's a catcher. And that pitcher throws the ball to the catcher, and the speed in which the ball moves and the distance that the ball has to travel is our ability to be able to feel pleasure, okay? So if it can move, if the ball's being thrown really fast or really far, that simulates how much pleasure we can feel, all right? What's interesting is pleasure and pain are located in the same part of the brain, all right? So this is really, really important because in that same part of the brain, I want you to picture a teeter-totter, okay? A teeter-totter, seesaw, I don't know what part of the world you're from, whatever you call it. And that teeter-totter can go back and forth. On one side of the teeter-totter is pleasure, on the other side is pain, all right? Same part of the brain, okay? If we tap into a lot of pleasure, that part of the seesaw, that part of the teeter-totter goes down. And our brains are so cool, y'all. So freaking cool. Our brains need balance and equilibrium. And when we push on the pleasure side, you know what our brain does automatically? And it does this, is it says, okay, you're getting pleasure. We need to make sure you stay balanced. So it throws pain at you. Okay. Well, here's the deal. A lot of the people that I work with, they've experienced secrecy and hiding and compulsive behavior that's been very destructive to relationships. And what they've found that they've hid is pleasure seeking a behavior, okay, that gives them that dopamine. All right. Well, what's interesting about that dopamine is the more you get of it, you have a dopamine deficit, which is the ability to be able to feel dopamine. Because the more you get, the more pleasure you get, the less you're able to feel it. So go back to the pitcher and the catcher. So the pitcher and the catcher start moving closer together. So the closer together they get, the ball can't move as fast and it's not moving as far. So that pleasure can't be felt in the same way it does before. Okay. So we have to get more of it. What that means is I become intolerant of pain. Okay. Just an intolerance to pain. So when pain shows up, then I'm like, I can't do this pain. I can't do it. It becomes too intense. But our brains are beautiful and amazing. Pain's there on purpose and it's creating balance again. So I'm going to draw this in from my favorite part of this whole thing. You know what I used to always solve? Problem I used to always try to solve? And I'm talking about problem as an emotional problem because I viewed emotions as problems that I needed to fix. And I'd fix them in really problematic ways and destructive ways. One of the problems I used to fix was boredom. Okay, like I'm silent right now on purpose. Okay, I used to try to fix boredom. I viewed boredom as a problem. Okay, boredom isn't a problem. And what's created out of boredom? I want to highlight two things: relationship with self and creativity. Okay, relationship with self, because what happens is in the recovery world or in this world that men decide to enter with me, where I respect these men so much, is they go, okay, I'm going to start to give space to things that make me uncomfortable. Emotions, okay? Those emotions we identify as like that pain piece. So the more I start to value pain, then my brain levels out. And then what do I get? As soon as my brain starts to level out, my ability to be able to feel pleasure again. Okay? It's crazy. I can't tell you, I can think about a time way back in the day where I had a close call and I had a boundary for myself, a barrier for myself, not a boundary, a barrier, where I said, okay, I'm going to not go to certain places on my electronic device. I remember close call, really close to acting outside my values and crossed my barrier. And talked to my therapist about it. And he goes, you know what? He's like, hey, okay, Luke, here's what I want you to do. It's Friday. We had a session on Friday. He's like, I want you to go ahead and just check your phone in with your wife. By the way, not saying she should be your accountability partner and you need to check in your phone with your spouse, but just check your phone with your wife. Just say, hey, here's my phone. I'm going to get it back from you on Sunday night. And I was in a lot of I was pretty nerve-wracked about my close call. And I'm like, sure. Yeah. Whatever you say. And I don't like what I just did. It was kind of close to acting outside my values. I'm cool with that. And I remember it was Friday. And then by the time Saturday morning hit, I was like, what the? I was like, what? I was like pacing around the house. I'm like, what do I do? I don't know what to do with myself. I'm just like, and I got nervous. I'm like, what if I miss a phone call? What if something happens at work? It's so stupid. It was like the weekend. Nobody was going to call me. I started to rationalize and justify, I gotta, this is nerve wracking. And then I went through pain. My brain was detoxing from my pleasure center, which was my phone, my ability to be able to get that dopamine. And then I found myself starting to, after I was balancing back out, getting on the floor and playing with my kids in ways that I don't normally do. I remember playing, not that I never played Legos or anything with them, but I remember doing some stuff that I didn't typically do. I remember this is nice. And because my brain was resetting, by the way, notice, other than feeling the emotions, I wasn't doing anything. Okay. I was just feeling my experience. My my teeter-totter balance is back out. It's so interesting now to reflect of what was happening to me that I didn't even know, which is I was just so intolerant of pain. I can't do pain. I'm pacing around the house. I'm starting to justify, rationalize how to get some dopamine back. So the pitcher and catcher were moving farther apart. And now the ball, when it gets thrown, because it's getting thrown fast and it's carrying a long distance. Now I can feel that pleasure again. Boredom wasn't a problem at all. Boredom for me was something where creativity could be more in a relationship with self. And I think about it like, okay, one of the things that we talk about in groups and one-on-one sessions is we talk about, okay, so let's describe an experience where you can bored. Okay, you're bored. What would that look like? I don't know. I'd probably just sit there and I'd stop and I'd think, and maybe thoughts would come in, and then I'd recognize them, and maybe I'd pick a different thought, and maybe I'd just kind of slow myself down and I'd process that, and maybe I'd think about what's important to me, and I'm like, oh, cool. So you're like meditating? And guys will go like, oh, yeah, that's actually something we're chasing, which is another neurotransmitter, serotonin, another chemical inside your brain. That's super healthy. So anyway, the thought here that I took from the book, and there's so much gold in there, I totally encourage you to pick it up, is just that pain isn't bad. Pain is useful. One last piece I'll give in this concept is we're talking about pleasure, dopamine, what our brain will balance back out, pain will show up. And that's not bad because it's creating equilibrium. It's creating homeostasis is the word she uses in the book. I wanted to share with you this other one, which is fascinating, which is, okay, so what happens if I get too much pain or if I get pain? And I'm like, have you guys ever done a cold plunge before? And that's kind of what I'm asking y'all right now. Have you ever done one? And I'm picturing some of you going, yeah. And then some of you go, no, why would you do that? That's stupid. That's probably more what I'd be thinking. And I talk to people, I say, okay, so for those of you who've done it, what's it like? Tell me. And they're like, they get this weird smile on their face, like this level of uncomfortableness, and they're excited to talk about it. And it's fun to watch them talk about it because they have this really cool experience to share. And I say, all right, so, okay, let me give you some statistics. Check this out. When it comes to dopamine levels, chocolate gives you about a 55% increase in dopamine. Nicotine, 150%. Oh, the one in between that, 100%, sex, an orgasm, okay? Cocaine, 225. Check this out, y'all. Oh, by the way, meth, hit on a meth pipe, like 1,000%. That's 10 orgasms. Pretty intense, right? A cold plunge creates dopamine at 400%, okay? That's where I got my statistic from, something that I read. I should be able to reference it. 400%, y'all. But people think about cold plunges and they think pain, right? They go, that's painful. Yeah, because guess what the brain does? When you get pain, a significant amount of pain, what's the outcome later? Pleasure, because you're resetting your brain. And they talk about it as exhilarating. They say, getting that. And I'm like, okay, so here's what I want to do with the cold plunge thought. There are two different ways to do a cold plunge, okay? You could have a cold plunge where somebody dares you and you're like, okay, I can do this. And you jump into the water and you're like, you just count down to whatever you are, 60 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever it might be. You're like, I don't want to do this. I hate this. This is horrible. Can't wait for it to be over. And then I think about this other experience with a cold plunge. And I picture somebody that goes, all right, I'm going to do this. Why am I doing this? Okay. All right. And then they put their feet in the water and they go, oh my gosh, that is cold. Whew, that feels cold. And they feel that experience. They recognize that sensation. And they go, okay. And then they sit in the water and they go up to their chest and they go, and then what they do is they go, okay, what am I experiencing? What's happening? And they actually give space for pain, okay? And I think that's the beautiful part, is the giving space for the pain, allowing the pain to be present, valuing it. That's the liberating part. That's for me, the exciting part. I don't like pain. Like, I'm not telling you I've all of a sudden developed some relationship where I'm just excited to be in pain. But I do see the value of pain. I don't view it as a problem like I used to. And I love what I watch my freaking heroes and clients do is they lean into pain and they're scared of it. It intimidates them, and they go, and it's only because of the pain that they're in, right? Can't experience, it's the pain of getting caught, the pain of whatever it is. I can't do this anymore. So they go, okay, I'll lean into that other pain, right? I'll choose it. And the most beautiful things happen like ever. Anyway, there's more concepts on the book. I'm pretty sure we'll end up discussing them and talking about them. So really love your comments on this, thoughts you have on this. You can find some details in the show notes. We'll put a link to the book. It's an enjoyable read. If you read the book and you're not used to hearing about sexual dysfunction, or there's some heavy stories in there, some people might view them as heavy. And I guess if you're not used to hearing that kind of stuff, I'll encourage you to kind of make it through the first section. If it does feel like it is heavy, chapter 4 is specifically the part that I'm talking about. But anyway, love to have further conversations with you on it. Hey, thanks for joining us today. If this is something that you connected with, I'd love to meet with you more and talk about it. So what you can do is go to chooserecoveryservices.com or check the show notes. And there what we can do is set up a quick conversation to meet. Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Facade, where we unmask the authentic self.